particularly excited about this panel. About 5 to 10 years ago, I was basically telling any entrepreneur that had a marketplace idea that it was a terrible idea, way too hard to bring multiple sides of supply and demand together. Why do that? Obviously a stupid thing to say because yes, Amazon did exist then and was doing well. But we're here to talk about starting a marketplace startup. It has unique challenges and also incredible rewards. And I'd love to start with Yi-Hsian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yi-Hsian Godfrey. I'm co-founder and CEO of Apiari. We're the modern household manager, and we help busy families find, book, and manage in-home care providers on demand.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kenji. I'm a co-founder of East Meet East. It's a dating app catering to the Asian community in English-speaking countries. And now we have a live streaming feature, which is the fastest growing segment in our business. It grew like 4 times in 1 year. So that's more like a marketplace because we have like a live streamer and then the viewers and stuff like that.
What is the live streamer doing for your marketplace?
Also, they're just like providing entertaining contents within the platform, and viewers can engage with multiple viewers can engage with the streamer, and then they can give digital gifts, and that's how we monetize.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, I'm Jaden. I'm the co-founder of Pietra. So we are a marketplace for creators of high-end physical goods. So our first category was fine jewelry. So we connect people who make and design fine jewelry with people who love it and want to buy it.
Great, thank you. Arun.
I'm Arun. I'm the CEO of Grailed, which is a marketplace for men's clothing. And we also run heroin.com with an E, which is a marketplace for women's clothing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alpay. I'm the founder and CEO of Kaiyo. Kaiyo is an online marketplace for pre-loved furniture with a commitment to great designs, exceptional customer care experience, and a more sustainable planet. We make it extremely easy to buy and sell good quality furniture. We pick up, we clean, we photograph, we deliver, and everything is algorithmically priced so you can find great deals on some of your favorite brands.
So let's say, Alpay, let's dive right in. How did it start? How did you get your first piece of furniture and your first customer?
The very first few customers were mostly SEO and Craigslist, believe it or not. It still is actually the most, Craigslist is still the most dominant player out there in our industry. So what I did was I just reached out to a couple of people that I thought might be interested in the service. And sure enough, there was a big need for what we were providing the sellers. So it was very easy to get that going. And we had a pretty strong SEO background as well. So it was pretty easy to lure in the first few customers without really spending a whole lot on marketing.
And so what were you adding then to the value chain? You were basically able to bring more customers to the Craigslist listing by doing the marketing for that listing yourself?
So the big need that we saw, that was really the hypothesis of Kaiyo, which started out under a different name, Furnishare, which I know is a nicer name, perhaps. We were just chatting in the backstage. The big thing that we provide sellers is the pickup. It's the convenience. What we found is that a lot of people have really nice furniture, and they're completely detached from it. It's the largest waste category in the United States, actually. There's virtually no recycling of furniture in this country or in the developed world in general. So by providing that fast free pickup, we found that that we were meeting a need that was just unmet.
So it was really the demand on the buyer, the seller side to get rid of the furniture, almost more so than the demand on the buyer side.
Absolutely. We saw an opportunity on the sell side, and our approach still is, provide the best service possible for the supply side. If you can corner that market, you can figure out what to do on the demand side.
Yi-Hsian, more of a services marketplace. You bring services and people together. How did you make your first match?
We had a handful of providers, and we threw up a website and threw in some Google AdWords and had our first customer in the first week that we put on a website. So for me, what was fascinating was the fact that finding care is such a pain point that people are willing to go onto Google. Like that was like the mind-blowing aspect for me. It was like, wow, you're willing to go to a new company that you've never heard of, you've never even seen our stuff before, but you are so desperate to find help that you're willing to give us a shot. So I still remember my first client, Stacy, called. She just gave birth. Her baby came early. Her night nurse wasn't starting for another 2 weeks, and she was desperate. And there was no way that she was spending 20 hours of the new baby at home trying to go through 3,000 potential care providers for her. So I think what's interesting about our business is that unlike my other fellow panelists, where there's a lot of fun and joy in looking for furniture, for jewelry, nobody ever said, oh, I really had a great time on care.com trying to find a babysitter, a cook, or a cleaner. So they're really looking for convenience, and they're looking for great providers that they can book within minutes and not hours.
Are you trying to make the case, Yi-Hsian, that you have the most valuable marketplace?
I have one that can stick with you for the longest, let's put it that way.
But how many, you got your first customer on Google using Google AdWords. How many options did you have to have available to really give her something to buy or a compelling market to choose from?
Yeah, so the big differentiation for us is that we offer a curated care. As a parent myself, I often feel like, why doesn't these marketplaces just tell me they don't have anyone, right? Instead, they make me go through 3,000 searches to be like, you know what, not sure, not feeling it. So we took an early premise that we were going to do a best match, and if we couldn't, we would tell you, I'm sorry, we don't have a match for you, and you would respect me and come back to me for your future searches rather than make me waste 20 hours of your time and then find nothing. So we today actually offer a curated match based on our proprietary algorithms that serve up 3 to 5 matches for you.
And when you made that first match, behind the scenes, behind curation, how many offerings did you have?
We had 3 providers who were serving night nurses at that time.
I think that's a really fabulous takeaway and note for the other early stage entrepreneurs in the audience.
Yeah. I think you don't need a lot, you just need quality, and I think it's just learning and testing. And you know, we still do that today at a small batch. We try to figure out why is it a good match, why it isn't. And also I think geocentric focused, I think is very helpful. So not to spread yourself too thin geographically where you couldn't make a match. We were very focused on Manhattan to start with.
It's a great point. We'll definitely come back to geography. Arun, do you agree that it's more about quality and less about volume?
Yeah, totally. Especially in the early days, because you can't have volume, so you might as well have quality. I think when I was first starting Grailed, I was a little bit lucky because I was starting to get out of behavior that already existed on the internet. Men's clothing back in 2010, 2012 wasn't really something that people cared about or talked about a lot. So people who were into it kind of had to go online to talk to other people or find other people who were interested in it as well. And in all these sort of communities, there were these shadow gray market transactions that were happening where somebody was like, hey, I bought this Saint Laurent jacket, final sale. It doesn't fit me. I'm never going to wear it. Do you want to buy it for like half what I paid or less? And I was like in these markets and people were doing this. So I quickly realized that obviously forums, Reddit is not the best place to do these transactions. Like images take forever to load. It's hard to haggle over pricing. So I was like, hey, I could build a website that aggregates all these listings together, and then this marketplace could be 10, 20, 100 times as big. But it was nice because there's already supply out there, right? So like people were already selling on Reddit, people were already selling on forums. So I was able to go to these people who were already selling, already had images taken of their product, already were like motivated to sell their product, and be like, hey, I'll port your images over to my website. I'll create an account for you. I'll do all this stuff. And I got to pick which ones I wanted. So I curated like maybe 500 listings of just like really great product and put it up on the website. And the sellers who were doing this didn't actually have to do anything. And then I launched with like a Reddit post or a forum post being like, hey, I built this marketplace for all of us together in the community to buy and sell stuff to each other. And people went onto the marketplace, they were like, wow, everything on this place is really, really nice. And you know, they don't know, unless they scroll to the bottom, there's only 500 things. But even if there are only 500 things, they're like, you know, it's 500 awesome things. Like I should buy something. So I think quality is super important.
Okay, so 500. It wasn't 50. It wasn't 1,000. Were you shooting for 500? Again, going back to the people who are looking for like what to target, what makes sense for their business.
Totally. I think getting it out there sooner rather than later is super important, especially with the marketplace, right? Because if you're not live, then like, what are you doing with a marketplace, right? Like people can't add and like join and sign up and then like you have nothing. So you can spend, I think, I mean, other people should jump in and be like, this is what I think, but I think you should spend some amount of time getting initial supply, whatever you feel like a critical mass of supply is for your marketplace. Like for a care provider, maybe it's 3 is good enough, right? And then you can get somebody out there. But once you get that critical mass of supply, you just launch it publicly. And then what you want to do is jumpstart the flywheel, right? So if you can get people saying like, hey, there is good supply here. If I have good supply, I should put it here. And you get buyers being like, hey, this is a place that I should check. Then you can sort of like start to like and it's not as easy as that, obviously. But you can at least start to like create the behavior and see what works, right? You don't want to hold it too close to the chest. You want it to be out in the world so people can like rip it apart so that you can fix it.
Kenji, what was critical mass for East Meets East?
It was 100 female first. So what happened was that we went even further to focus on certain subsegment within the Asian community in the US. So we focus on one city, New York City, and age between 23 and 28, and also heterosexual, female. And then we made sure that each person is going to be very active on the site. They have the needs to find someone. And, we personally know these people, like through a friend or through a social media network. We pinpoint them. We gave them actually Sephora gift cards just to make sure they're going to be active on the site. It's not like we are not. They're real users, but they have more incentive to respond. Yep.
That's interesting. So the Sephora gift card came with how did you kind of message the obligation or ensure that they were kind of going to hold up their end of the deal?
I didn't want it to be transactional. So I just,
of course.
when you give someone, they want to reciprocate, right? So that's how it works.
So you were nudging a behavior through that, creating loyalty, if you will.
Yep.
Okay. Jaden, did you confront these issues when you were getting Pietra off the ground?
Yeah, so I think everyone's point about critical mass is really important. So critical mass was 3, it was 500 pieces. For us, we actually had different products within the world of fine jeweler that we could launch in phases. So what we did was we actually started with the one that had this very, very high intent, this very clear path, which was it's hard to find a guy to make an engagement ring for you. That was like our first product. And it was something that was so crystal clear that everyone knew this was a problem. Nobody could find somebody. And so all we needed to get traction was about 15 engagement ring jewelers. And we could find those people in New York, in LA, in Chicago. We found some in Israel. Literally, I called everybody I could, and we found these people to come on the platform. And then we had the next product, which was make anything custom, which you probably needed about 30 people.
And I'm sorry, for the first product, what was kind of the traction on the consumer side?
Yeah, so we put up a few Google ads and a few Facebook ads, very, very low cost. And we just had a ton of interest. We had hundreds of people show up to be like, I want to buy an engagement ring. Help me do this. I want to talk to 10 jewelers at one time. And that was the start of all of it. And then from there, we kind of said, okay, this is working really well for engagement jewelers. Let's open this up to designers who can make anything for anybody. And you needed maybe 35, 40 people to do that because it had to feel like there were enough people to handle all of the wacky requests that you get in the world because there's so many shapes and forms of jewelry, right? So like you had to have at least 2 or 3 people bidding on everything that someone could imagine.
Yeah.
You probably needed 30 of those people. And then the next product was actually just ready-to-wear collections where we had listings of products and it just had to feel full.
So you had 15 people on the site. Were these people with whom you had a personal relationship or were they comfortable coming to the site knowing that there was a lot of uncertainty? Did they have to wait long for a sale? How did you kind of keep them primed?
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that we faced early on, which was like 300, 400, 500 requests would come in. And the excited jewelers in the beginning would just start bidding on all of them because they were super excited. And they would get 1 out of every 20 maybe. And so the way that we kept them engaged was personal relationships.
Yeah.
We would call them, we would send them flowers. We would say, thanks so much for being a part of this. We're building the future together. And we lost some of them and we didn't lose some of them. And here we are.
The ones that you lost, why did you lose them?
They just get frustrated with bidding over and over again. And they felt like their physical store or their physical business was a better use of their time than joining Pietra and attempting to kind of navigate this new way to do business.
And how did you earn that fabulous name, Pietra?
It's funny. So our original name was Carbon Club, which my partner Ro came up with. So he and Pan, my partners, were from Uber. I'm from the world of like direct-to-consumer brands. And they Ro had this idea for Carbon Club, and it was because diamonds are made of carbon. And we all liked the idea. We tested it with a few of our friends, and we had the opportunity to sit down with Anna Wintour, and we pitched her the idea, and she's like, I like the idea, but I don't like your name. So we had a few in the tank, right? We had 3, 4, 5 names, and we're just like, oh, we just started throwing them out at her. And I said, Pietra, and she said, Pietra, I like it. And so...
Sounds like she could launch a new service.
That's the name. That's the story.
I want to stay on the topic of incentives and engagement because I think this is really interesting. Alpay, when you have you have to find a new user pretty frequently. I imagine your sales cycle kind of ends after one piece of furniture. So how are you kind of managing the constant marketing to these different potential sellers? Is it all still through Craigslist or Google AdWords?
At this point, it's a pretty mature variety of channels, I should say. Craigslist, believe it or not, is still actually a big acquisition channel for us because people are still trying to buy and sell there. We use quite a bit of AdWords, quite a bit of traditional marketing on SEM, on Google AdWords, Facebook. We do some Spotify ads. We've done Subway ads in the past. We're always testing additional channels, direct mail, etc.
Arun, your 500 people or 500 items, sorry. Your 500 items, were you paying people? Were you getting paid a commission on those sales, or did you just do it for testing?
Totally. So in the beginning, I was really concerned with growth, obviously, and like I wanted it to become a thing and not just die out. So I wanted to reduce the barriers to entry as much as possible, so I wasn't getting paid at all. And I did that for about a year and a half, which like it's hard to say if I would like recommend that or not. I think now I wouldn't recommend it. I think back then. I mean, now people are so used to new services and more willing to use new services that I think it's not as hard. But I think back then people were more skeptical, I think. But now there's like startups popping up everywhere that do everything, and like it's easier to trust them, I think, than it was back then. But I was running it for free for maybe 2 years, and then I was so nervous about actually charging. And I was worried that it would sort of like slow down the growth rate or all of that stuff. So I waited, and we launched the iPhone app. And we started charging, and then we did like a big promotion, like flash sale at the same time, but basically like bookended charging like between the iPhone app and the flash sale, so that people were like, oh, they're charging and they're doing this big promotion. So kind of like changed the news cycle, which was actually in hindsight like really unnecessary. Like marketplaces are pretty well, like take rates in marketplaces like pretty well established. Like Etsy was notoriously charging 3.5% and then getting 15% blended when they went public. I think maybe at least 10, maybe 15%. And like, the market average, like eBay set the market average at 10. And I think that's pretty well accepted now by the consumers.
So then looking back, should you have charged sooner? Should you have?
You know, I don't think it really matters, honestly. We could have charged sooner, and I think it would have been fine. We could have waited a little bit longer, and I think it would have been fine. I think every marketplace over the course of its lifetime, if you keep growing, increases its take rate over time. Etsy is a good example. All the new marketplaces that are coming out are good examples. We'll continue to increase our take rate, as we keep growing as well. So I don't know. It really depends on the economics of your business, right? Like if you're doing physical authentication, obviously your take rate has to be much higher. If you're not, then it doesn't, right? So like you just have to make sure that the economics of your business work, right? That like your CACs and your LTVs make sense, and that you can keep acquiring new customers through whatever mechanism is the one that you use.
Alpay, I actually want to just go back to you on the pricing front. How does your pricing work?
So we're probably the marketplace out there that charges the most of any marketplace out there. Our take rates actually start at 60% and goes up from there. But we let the customers actually pick it. So if you're selling with us, you tell us what percentage of the proceeds you want to receive, and in return for that, our algorithm basically will provide you a higher chance of getting that fast free pickup. Again,
you let your customers decide how much they want to pay you?
Correct. It's pretty unique, but again, it goes back
What's
to
the spread like between like can I charge
0 to 40%?
Zero. What if I pick 0? What happens?
Yeah, it's most likely that it's going to get picked up, but there's no guarantee either way.
You're saying that if I pick a low number, then you might not serve me.
If you pick a low number, our algorithm is more likely to say this is worth picking up for free, basically. And so, but there's no guarantee. There's plenty of stuff that we reject at 0% because what the person wants is it's trash and they just want to get it removed, and we're not going to do that.
What are the advantages of letting the customer pick?
Well, we're still playing around with it. We've changed the model quite a bit over the years, and we're still playing around with this. The advantage that we see is that people just feel more empowered. They just know what the deal is. They know that it's in our best interest to sell for the highest price possible, because we, at the end of the day, take a big chunk of that as well. But our hypothesis is that the main need for the seller is really the removal. They want to get that. They need to move on Friday. They want us to show up, provide the great service that our team provides, and get that thing out their apartments on the date that they need it. And they're willing to basically pay up for that.
Yi-Hsian, how does your pricing work?
So when we started our marketplace, we charge as much as we can. We basically wanted to make sure that there was the need for our service and that people were willing to pay. I didn't want to start from the lowest pay possible and then find it really hard to make a margin later on. So we were starting at like 30% margins, and everybody was on a flat. To be clear,
taking 30% of the fee that the service provider would charge.
Taking 30% of what the client paid. So one thing we knew was that all of our competitors were doing nickel and diming, right? We call it a pay-to-play system. So you want to talk to a provider, you got to be a member. Oh, you want to do a background check? Then there's an extra $1 on this, right? So we just said everything's included. You're not going to have to figure out how much you're going to pay. Like whatever you see as the per hour rate, you can figure out very quickly. Any 4 hours at $25, that's $100, right? I'm done. People like that so much better than trying to figure out how much they had to add up. So that was when we made price really transparent. When we first started, just for simple accounting, we had everybody at the same rate. And it was really hard to find a diverse group of supply because everybody had different levels of experience. So as we were able to prove out our business, our CTO built out our platform that allowed individual suppliers to come in at their own pay rate. And we were able to give them some pricing guidelines like, oh, you only have 2 years of experience, so this is the good range for you. Whereas if you have 30 years of night nurse experience, you're on the top range. And it gives clients a choice.
I mean, that's such a great point because part of the service that all of you are providing is, well, except maybe East Meets East, is like guidance on pricing, helping these people sell something, and they probably have no experience ever doing that. So, Jaden, how do you work with your suppliers? Do you give them guidance on pricing? Is that kind of a service, lowercase or capital case?
Yeah, so the list price that they put their items on Pietra at, we give them guidance. We tell them kind of what we're seeing selling, what the AOVs are on Pietra, but they choose. Right, they set whatever the price are. As far as margin goes on our side, we have a pretty clear pattern matching that we can do to the retail industry, right? So like the core of our marketplace is this ready-to-wear side of things, which is like you can list 500 items, you can list thousands of items, and we sell those every day. So in retail right now, retailers are taking about 50% of the margin from all of these brands. And so we came in and said, we're going to be at least half of that. And so we have a pretty clear story for them to come on Pietra and sell through us.
And you help them set the prices for, sorry, just going back to you do, okay.
Yeah, so we don't help them set the prices, but we provide guidance on best practices for the marketplace.
Got it. Yeah. Kenji, how does pricing work for customers of East Meets East?
So in our case, it's a little different.
Yeah.
We started charging quite early because what happened was the female members, we have more male members than the female members in the heterosexual section. So what happened was—
What are the percentages, if you don't mind?
It's about 30 to 40 versus 60 to 70. So, but male members are much more active as well. So what happened was female members were bombarded with messages. So we realized that we had to do something about it. So that's when we decided to charge quite a bit for male members only, so that we can weed out unwanted messages and it also weeded out, filtered out, people who are only looking for hookup, because I don't think people are willing to pay for hookups. They just wanted freebies. So it's true. It's true.
He's just talking about business, people. It's just
metrics, guys, metrics.
Kenji, what did you charge?
So we charge higher than normal dating apps because we cater to a specific need of a community. Mm-hmm. So we charge about if you wanted to go for like a 1 year plan, then it comes out to be about $15 per month. But if you only do 1 month, which we discourage because you're not going to find a soulmate in 1 month, it's about $40. Yep. Yeah.
And how much nudging does East Meet East do to help people if you are encouraging not hookups but forever love and partnership? What are you doing to encourage that, if anything? Actually,
we don't really want to encourage forever, like in one shot, because we want them to come back.
Metrics, yeah.
Yeah. So the rate of success, that's your question?
My question was, how do you get people to be in long-term relationships? And the answer is, you do not.
No. That was a joke, but it's unlikely that people will meet a soulmate in one shot. Mm-hmm. So 40% of our customers come back. So we want the experience to be as good as possible. So they will come back because we don't manipulate so that they don't get a success. Yeah. Because it's just by nature, it doesn't work out. But you're optimizing for retention and being a long-term resource for them as they look for love. And how long is the average duration someone spends on East Meets East? So it's about 2 months. 2 months, yeah. Okay. So that's good, but they come back. Mm. So 40% of the users come back to become a customer again. Yeah. Got it. Talk to me about engagement metrics. How do you know that people are active on the platform? How are you tracking people? Is it important to you? Arun, let's start with you on this. Do you need the same people coming back consistently, or are you constantly out looking for new people?
Yeah. So new versus existing. Obviously, in a marketplace, you want
either side.
Yeah, you want both. You need so you cut it by seller and buyer, and you cut acquisition and retention. So if you're retaining all your existing supply, that's great. But like you need all 4 quadrants. If that picture is clear, like buyers, sellers, acquisition, LTV need to be healthy. And based on where your marketplace is, you need to focus on different ones at different times. So I think that's super important. It depends on what your business is too, in terms of like what kind of engagement you want from your users. Obviously, in like a dating app, you want, or like furniture, right? It depends on the purchasing habits of your customer, right? So like if your customer is buying like a mattress, right? Like you want them to, they're only gonna buy a mattress once every 5 or 10 years, right? So you need to be heavier on acquisition than you are in retention. For us, you can buy clothes like once a month or, once a week or once a day, depending on how into it you are. So it's really just you need to match your expectations of your LTV to your customers or your engagement, right? So like, and then it's about average order value versus repeat, right? So there's a lot of, it's a big question.
Yi-Hsian, how do you cultivate retention and engagement on your platform from either side?
Yeah, so I would first say that as starting a marketplace, we really struggled with finding the right metric for us. You Google marketplace metrics, and then there's like a standard list, but I think you really have to really know your business to find the right ones. We were finding so many laggard indicators. So at first we were like, oh, let's track revenue. And then revenue will come and we're like, oh, great. And then be like, oh, not so great this month. And we couldn't really push the revenue because we didn't see it until hindsight. So late last year, or actually middle of last year, we made a decision to, what really works for us is sessions. So just as a step back, we offer cooking, cleaning, night nurse, childcare, all the way through elder care. So they're all in different price points. So having a really clean metric, like looking at number of sessions and growing that month over month, gave us the clarity on what we need to push for. It just made a cleaning session that was at $100 the same value as a night nurse that was at $320. So that just balanced everything out for us.
And when you were sorry if I'm misunderstanding, but when you're pushing sessions, you're saying you're putting this in front of people. I'm sorry, how are you
So I think when we were looking at sessions, we were able to say, oh, we're goaling ourselves on getting 100 sessions this month. We have 80 in the books, mm-hmm. right? How are we going to get the other 20? And then we get to think, okay, who are the type of people we need to go after? Are they reoccurring? There are people who are needing babysitting week over week. Are they one-offs? it just made it a little easier for us to strategize on how to push that number ahead month over month to achieve our goals. But in terms of engagement and retention, we're still trying to figure that out a little bit, to be honest with you. We noticed that people come and use us for 3 months and then drop off, and we're like, oh, maybe they don't like us. But then 2 months later, they're back. And this is kind of proving our thesis is that people need care through different phases in their lives, and it's not very neat.
Yep.
Right? So you can't say, oh, because I lost them in 1 month, it doesn't mean that they're never coming back. So we're still trying to figure out what that retention, like for us, it was starting at 1 month, and then we saw people come back at 3 months. We're like, okay. And then we saw people come back at 9 months.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to figure out the right.
And how do you mitigate people going outside the platform to get the services from the same people?
Yeah, so carrots and sticks. You should always be thinking about that. We have a very heavy penalty for clients who poach our providers. When you book our sessions, we literally say in our terms that we have the right to charge you $4,500. That is what you would pay an agency, so it's not absurd. If you were to hire an agency to help you find these people, that's what they would charge you.
Have you done that?
We actually had one client come to us and say, I love your provider so much, I'm going to take her off your platform and pay us $4,500.
Okay.
And then she tried to, and it was such a nightmare. She asked for a refund and then came back onto our platform.
Okay.
So I think the value add that we provided for our clients when they realize, wow, if I had to do this on my own, it sucks. And it's totally worth the margin that you are charging me to do this. So that's what we...
Jaden, what are your key metrics?
Yeah, so I think that I love the quadrant. That was a great imaginary quadrant. For us, it is about buyers and sellers, but it's also about we have a low frequency marketplace, right? It's jewelry, so it's not like you're buying something every day. Someone spends $4,000 in one day. It's not like they're coming back tomorrow, and if we don't see them, we're not really mad about it. So we do look at GMV. Obviously, we look at traffic. We look at, most importantly for us, I think, is if we look at, do people love us? Do people say that they love the experience on both sides? I think that's something that's really important for us as a marketplace. It's a little tough to quantify sometimes, but you see it when designers keep logging into the portal. You see it when they post on their community feed. You see it when customers start responding and commenting to those designers posting. So we've built this kind of community for them. And if they're engaged with it, we can see that not in sales, but in activity.
Alpay, what are your key metrics at Kaiyo?
Yeah, we're similar in the sense that it's a lower frequency purchase and sale at the end of the day. So we tend to, there are a lot of metrics that we look at on a daily basis. On my dashboard, there are dozens of them, but the most important things for us are the AOV and the unit cost of everything that goes into
AOV,
average order value, and then all the different, the average cost of doing everything that we do in the business when we're doing the pickups and the deliveries and everything in between. And then looking at what our gross margin is, and then looking at what the all-in CPA for an order is. One thing that we did find really challenging, and some of you might be running into that as well, is that it was really difficult for us to actually split the spend into the two quadrants, because we'd put an ad out there to get people to buy the furniture, and then people would come in and sell. And the opposite would happen when we were putting out, when we were spending on getting sellers on the site. So the way that we deal with it is, we look at our all-in paid CPA and our all-in effective CPA as well, just as a gut check. And ultimately, if your paid CPA is meaningfully lower than, the average, net margin you have on an order, you're in a good place. You can, with every order, you can, kind of spin that flywheel faster and faster.
and just abbreviations that have come up. Cost per acquisition, CPA, and also LTV came up before, in case anyone doesn't know, that's lifetime value. Let's stay with Kaiyo for a minute, and I do want to hear from almost everyone on this. Oh, everyone. What is your marketing mix right now? What's working for you?
In terms of channels?
Yes.
There's a good chunk of it. It's different. The breakdown is different for both sides, but on the acquisition side, it's a good mix of Craigslist, SEM, social media, and other test channels that we had on top of it.
Do you have a dedicated marketing team, or is it still the founders running marketing?
No, we do have a head of marketing who is managing multiple outsourced, one agency and multiple outsourced employees as well.
Are you finding that one team or one person can manage both sides of the marketplace, or do you generally keep them separate?
At the moment, it's one person managing multiple teams that manage the multiple sides of the marketplace. But I imagine the agency that we use probably handles both sides of the marketplace.
Kenji, what about Yi-Hsian? What does your marketing mix look like?
We have about 50% in digital marketing, including Facebook, AdWords, Snapchat, and all these platforms. And we are very big on influencer marketing. So, for example, we collaborate a lot with YouTubers. We do Instagram stories, at least 3 a month. And what worked for us is that some people might believe that if your product or services is good, then it's gonna naturally go viral, right? But you got to be careful with that, because nowadays people look for fun content. They just don't want to look at the services. They want to look at BuzzFeed style article or like a video. So what we do is that we use those contents that we make with influencers, release it on their channel first, and we have the right to use it and boost it on our digital media platform. So we just use it as a Facebook ads, and the click rate is like 100 times more than if you just did or East Meet East, where Asian dating app, it's boring.
Got it. Yeah. And Yi-Hsian, what about you? What does your marketing look like right now?
We do primarily a lot of digital advertising. We test into different channels. We started content marketing, which was good for us as well. And we're now launching...
Content marketing to both sides of...
Actually, we don't do anything for providers. We put out a free ad and we get 250 applications coming in without any spend.
Okay.
So all of our marketing is for the consumers, and we are testing into partnerships this year.
Arun, how about you?
Yeah, so we're a little bit of a weird case. We actually didn't spend any money on marketing until about 6 months ago, and we built the business mostly on organic. We did a lot of partnerships in the beginning. I guess we focus a lot on our brand, which I think is atypical for most companies that are starting out. Because back in 2014 when we launched, it was like kind of weird to buy used clothes. So people were like, oh, like you want to buy this shirt from me? People are like, it's gross. Like, why would I want to buy your shirt? So we focused a lot on like brand building and like changing the narrative from buying used clothes to just buying nice clothes, like either rare clothes or expensive clothes or clothes that A$AP Rocky wore. So that was like really a big part of like what we did in the beginning to build our brand. And that had a great run-on effect from organic traffic and organic acquisition. So that was most of what we did until about like 6 months ago. Obviously, SEO is really big for us. Any marketplace that inherently has a really large catalog should invest a lot of money in SEO or early, as I'm sure Kaiyo does as well. And
Arun, I actually just want to go back to brand, because that's not something we hear. Well, that's a big question that comes up. How much did you invest in brand, and how did you make that decision to say this is a worthwhile investment? And was it under 50K? Was it over?
What, money?
Yeah, for investing in brand.
It's not just about the money, right? It's like mostly about other things like the visual design of the website, like the partners that you choose to work with, the curation of the items on your website, right? So like back when we first started, I would delete items from the website like constantly. And it was just like, I don't know, it's very specific, right? I was like, this isn't something that I would ever wear. So like, I'm going to delete this. And like the website in the early days was basically like a reflection of things that I thought were cool. So that was kind of like the curation basically. And then as we scale from there, I'm like, well, preppy style is cool too, so like we should allow those items onto the marketplace. We've kind of like brought in from there. So it's hard to quantify it in terms of like a dollar investment. One thing we have done is like projects that we do that really kind of like demonstrate our brand and sort of like demonstrate our ethos like out into the marketplace. So I mentioned earlier when we started charging, we did this like flash sale promotion. So what we did is, so our website or our app is called Grailed. We launched this thing called the Grailed 100. And basically what we did is we spent, I think like 100K buying items from like the last 30 years of men's clothing and men's fashion, like old Dior and like Saint Laurent and like Gucci, like stuff from like Japan that was only available for like 3 years. And we like brought 100 items into the company or to our office, and we did a big photo shoot, like styled them. We styled like maybe 8 or 10 looks, and we did this like really big editorial photo shoot. I think we spent another maybe 20 grand on the imagery, and we hired this like really great photography, and then we merchandised this like really beautiful sale page for 100 items, which is kind of ridiculous. But at the time we were like fairly small. So we put together this sale page with like all this imagery of these items and these people, and it was like looks that nobody in the men's fashion space had ever seen before, right? Because it's stuff that you have from 20 years ago and stuff that you have from 10 years ago and stuff that you have from right now. So like no retailer would ever do a mix like that because nobody's ever selling items that are that old. So like the styling and like the juxtaposition of these items was like very different, and the curation like spoke to a lot of people, right? So like they were like, wow, these are like the 100 best items these are the items that Grailed thinks are the 100 best. I also think these items are great. So Grailed gets me, like Grailed, this is a place that I belong because these people like really understand fashion the way that I understand fashion. So when we launched that sale and we sold everything for like half of what we paid for, like that 100 grand turned into 50 grand once we sold it. But it was an amazing marketing tool and amazing brand building tool where we were like, hey, look, this is what we believe, like this is what is true to us. And like, we're authentic consumers and like enthusiasts like of this space.
Who is running marketing now at Grailed?
A more professional team.
And are they running marketing for both sides?
Yeah. So we don't actually focus on seller marketing enough, mostly because you remember the quadrant, our seller LTVs are very healthy. Our seller LTVs go up over time, which is amazing. Like LTVs never go up over time, or it's very rare. So we don't have to focus on that as much. And our seller acquisition is like, okay. It could be better, obviously. But since that side of the marketplace is relatively healthy, like that's not the areas of the business in which we focus.
Jaden, how do you, when you described starting out, you went very one-on-one to get the suppliers to the platform. So what is the process now? How do you market to them?
Yeah, so we did start out, I'd think of the supply side almost like B2B sales. And then the demand side is kind of a traditional e-commerce business. So just quickly on the demand side, I think it's important that we look at market channel fit and whether our company makes sense in the different channels. So we look at Google search, we look at shopping, we look at Facebook ads, we look at organic, we look at email, we look at SEO. And what we found was we had to understand the journey that our customer would take. So like in the beginning, I remember we were sitting there like, Facebook is not converting well for us. Let's get out of Facebook entirely. And like, that's obviously wrong. So what we had to figure out was Facebook is the first conversion. Then we have to get them in our client file. Then they have to have a good experience during their first 3 browses. We have to learn a little bit about who they are. Then we have to recommend them the right product in email. And then maybe they'll come back and purchase something. So all that has to be in place to kind of get your marketing down on the demand side. On the supply side, it's a little different, right? We're not running ads to suppliers. It's hard to kind of find them and market to them effectively. But we know if they go to some convention, or we kind of know who they are in the world because they've identified themselves as like, I like jewelry, I am a jeweler, I design things. And so we reach out to them and we have a funnel where it's like, start with an email, maybe you get into the phone call, they come visit the site, is the landing page working? Do they go through to the designer portal? Because you can get through to our designer portal and just see what's going on in there. You can't be live, but you can go in, you can add some items, you can put your profile up, and then we can tell you if you're a good fit for Pietra. And so that's sort of the funnel for those people.
I want to stay with you on that note, and I want to hear a little bit about product and how that evolved. So when you were doing your first 15, to go back to that number, was it manual?
You mean finding those suppliers, or?
Operating the custom work and matching the...
Yeah, so the way that we started out, and we're kind of on our 4th product in our stack right now. So the early product was essentially an open marketplace for diamond jewelry or for custom projects. So you'd come in and you would essentially make a request, and it would go out to 60 people, something like that, some subset of the marketplace where like that was the proper people. They were diamond people, they were designers, something like that. And what happens was you'd have 20 bids coming back, and people wouldn't know what to do with it. So we started kind of curating a bit more and deciding, all right, we're gonna not send every message back to the customer. We're gonna stop it and put a comparison sheet together for that customer. And suddenly that was a much better approach for us. So the product evolved over time.
So it just seems like, I feel like there's a manual start to a lot of these stories, and it sounds like it's almost necessary. So can you speak to, and Kenji, I'd love to hear about East Meets East. How did yours probably was not a manual start. I take that back. What did your first version of a product look like?
So it was more like a age group, which is very important, city, geography, and there is active, last login. So basically, we don't want to show people who are not
What were they logging into?
to the app, the website.
And so when
initially.
you launched and you had your first target market, New York City, heterosexuals from Asia, what was did you build the product first, or was there any like MVP of the product that you tested out and to learn?
So basically, we just launched it, but it was called beta, but it's still not an MVP. So it's a full-fledged product, but it's on a web base. Now we have apps. And what happened was that we didn't have a sophisticated algorithm to display the profiles. So we just showed someone who were most active within that age group and geography. So, these female would likely respond to the males who messaged
And did
them.
you have a CTO at the time, or?
Yes, we did.
And did they custom build this?
Yes, we had to do that.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
And at what point did you decide to start honing the algorithm?
I think like a year later, because I think people tend to give a chance. So it didn't really matter initially because we didn't have too many people to zero in on. At that point, it was still okay. As long as the member is active, 1 in 10 messages will get responded to.
Sure.
But the more you have people, you have to develop an algorithm to match the people more accurately. Yeah.
Yi-Hsian, what was your version 1 or what was your MVP?
It was a contact us form. And it was literally people were sending us an email and we would write back. We would had all our provider profiles in a PDF that we would send to as an attachment. They would open it up. They would say, I would like this person. We would do everything through Google Calendars. And we got to a point where it got so ugly. We were like, okay, I think we need to build something. So we did raise friends and family to build a MVP with an outsourced company. And I would say for anybody looking to build anything, we try to build a very minimal, lovable product. We did not. We still overbuilt. So I would really just say, really focus on building that MVP as small, as tight as possible. But during that time, we found our CTO, who is also our co-founder now. He was the co-founding CTO of Coffee Meets Bagel. So I met him cold. So again, you don't have to know these connections. I met him through AngelList. He was building through matching algorithms there, and then was at Rumi. And then when he heard what we were doing and the traction that we were seeing, he's like, yeah, you need this, and you've already proven out the model, so I'm all in.
Yeah.
And then he started building on top of all of our new stuff.
Jaden, what was V1 of your product? You said you were on the 4th product, and what is the product now?
Yeah, so just one funny anecdote about the first, just some war stories, I guess. The first sales on Pietra, I was on the phone with the customers, helping. I remember my first engagement ring sale, I got a guy to spend $9,000 who I'd never met before, some guy in Colorado, and it was just a big day in the office. But it was very manual at first. Eventually, we figured it out. So the product now is actually, we still have engagement, we still have custom, we have ready to wear. Now we're actually moving one step farther, and we're helping creators start with an idea and take it through to a product. So that in design help, sample help, going all the way through to opening up a Pietra shop and selling their item to their friends, family, and communities.
With both Jaden and Yi-Hsian, it just seems like it would be very tempting. Did you ever consider just saying forget a website, I can operate this marketplace through a you're talking about a high price product. You're talking about a high value, very sticky product. I say that as a mom who had to use a babysitting service for tonight in an emergency. And so to just be able to call up and say, I need someone, is a pretty valuable thing. So did you ever consider just saying no, I can, just charge a little bit more and operate this as a service, not a site?
Yeah, so what we actually found was that the connection wasn't quite enough for the transaction to occur. And what could happen then is, let's say we connected 2 people together, suddenly we get into this game of trying to police people from going off platform. For us, it was a big deal because every transaction is could be $10,000 for one transaction. So we started building tools for them so we became more valuable. So like a project management tool to help them kind of design together, the ability to find other partners for sourcing and packaging. We opened up the marketplace so it's a bit more layered now, and that's not something they can do without us.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, what about you? You had Craigslist at what point, and Google Ads, at what point did the website occur?
Our product, service, and marketing evolved multiple times, iterated multiple times over the years. The very initial product was the very basic website that I paid some developers in Ukraine to put together. The launch was extremely manual. I spent about a month or so just buying furniture on Craigslist with very little capital invested into it. We had about 100 items or so to launch the website. The product was on the sell side. Our offer has always been actually the same thing, because our hypothesis was this is a big waste problem. How can we solve this problem and envision a solution that can be the 21st century solution, if you will? And for that, the most important thing was giving the sellers the fast free pickup. And we still do that. We offer the exact same thing to the sellers, but on the buy side in the first product, what we offered was a rental, actually. And the idea, our initial name was Furnishare. The idea was that we would pick up for free, and then we were going to rent this out to people, and we're going to make money together, and we'll pay you on a monthly basis, basically. That was a very novel idea. This was kind of early for its time. Now there are more rental companies, startups these days. But it was very hard to explain to people. The pricing was it didn't make sense to people. The sellers wanted to do more. So we iterated to a furniture subscription business. So the sell side was exactly the same. The buy side was easier to explain to people who were subscribing. And we moved the website to WooCommerce, of all places, to WordPress. And we actually ran on that for quite a bit of time. And we realized that we got a lot more traction. We realized people really understood, and the buyers were loving the service. Sellers always loved the service, but buyers also started loving the service more. But it wasn't the 21st century breakthrough that we were hoping to become. But one thing we did notice was that people were calling us and saying, I really love this thing. I just want to buy it. Can I pay you more money and buy this thing off you? And if you're serious about building a consumer business, you should listen when your customer tells you, I want to pay you more money, take my money. So that's what we did. And using the same WooCommerce platform, I stayed up for about 3 weeks working with developers in India, tweaked the website so that we could sell products on the website. Now, this was, by this time, a complete Frankenstein of a website. I mean, I wouldn't have touched that website with a 10-foot pole. It took about 30 seconds to load a page. I've had people in checkout who failed because we were a new business, trying to buy a $200 West Elm sofa. And I'd get notifications every time, and I'd call them up and say, hey, if you give me your credit card over the phone, I can push this through. And I'll tell you, I've done that probably about 3 dozen times. The number of times people said no were 0. Even though checkout was taking about 30 seconds to load, you could switch between different fields in checkout. And because there were multiple plugins that didn't communicate with each other, you would lose some of your entry. That made me realize, like, there's value here. And if people are willing to put up with this, we probably don't need to prioritize fixing this right now. We should probably prioritize building the infrastructure that's going to run the whole thing. And because of that, the latest iteration of the product only happened about 2 years ago or so, and the marketing pivot to actually spending money on advertising really happened in the last 13, 14 months or so. We spent the whole time building the infrastructure, building the ERP backend that's going to really power what we were doing. And in the last year or so, we've really began advertising more aggressively. You've probably started seeing the trucks, if some of you know the brand from before, a lot more often, because that's when we started to really invest in getting the word out.
Let's hear from everyone. What is your number one piece of advice to entrepreneurs building a marketplace startup? Yi-Hsian?
I would go back to my point on building MVP, really thinking about building the smallest MVP you can to test out what you need to without overbuilding.
Great. Kenji?
I would say that you pay attention to the needs of the customers, and if there is such needs, really, because if there's none, you got to listen to the customers. Yep.
Thank you.
So I think I'll talk about failure a little bit. So I think early on, it's easy to think that when something doesn't work, it's a failure, and it is. But I think psychologically, it's important to understand that every day the failure is in not knowing the answer to something. It's not in actually failing. And so if you're failing every day, which means you don't know an answer, it starts to get psychologically debilitating. So like set your expectations to a point where if I ask a question and I get an answer on Tuesday, that was a good day. And I think that's something that is important to internalize. And then one marketplace one is if you hear from both sides at the same time that it's awesome, that's your product. Because we did a lot of things where one side was like, this is amazing, and the other side was like, you're draining us. This is tough.
Great. Arun?
So marketplaces, specifically, I think that marketplaces right now mean a lot of different things. I think the definition is very trendy, or the term is very trendy, and I think the definition is very broad. I would say that as you're building your marketplace, I would really be careful about balancing doing things that don't scale versus things that do scale. So there's like the famous story of Airbnb. Like in the beginning, they sent photographers to everybody's house to take great photos of everything. But obviously, you can't do that at scale. It doesn't work. Though I think maybe they are doing that at scale now. I'm not sure. So I would be careful to not set up your marketplace in such a way that it stops you from scaling, right? Because like if you're like, oh, I need to, go to everybody's house in order to talk to them, in order to do something, right? In order to get anything in order to get supply on my marketplace, then how many houses can you go to? It just makes it more difficult, right? So like in the beginning, there's definitely things that you need to do in order to jumpstart, like manual stuff, like we were all talking about. Like I reach out to people manually, Craigslist, like calling up suppliers directly, and all that stuff is super important. But make sure that as you're sort of like setting that stuff up, there is a point in time in which you can switch over to things that scale without your manual involvement. Or you can set it up in such a way that it does.
I like the kind of subtle, keep it simple lesson there. Alpay.
Yeah, I think mine kind of goes for any startup whatsoever, not necessarily marketplace, but it certainly helped us at Kaiyo, which is listen a lot and iterate a lot as well. We didn't start out as a marketplace. It just happened to be that the solution to what we were trying to solve was a marketplace. So it's really important, I think, to put something out there quickly, make it as lean as possible. If you can, figure out if you can launch something and get real information without really spending anything on marketing at all, if you can, or very little on marketing. Do the biggest MVP you can, listen intently, and with intent, and iterate. If it doesn't work, but you learn something that this really works, we should move in this direction, and that doesn't work, we need to get rid of that. Be willing to really switch things and move quickly.
Great.
So Matt, if I can just add, just to bring it back to where we started this conversation, marketplaces are really tough. So I would say if you want to build a marketplace, you really have to have a passion for solving the problem that your marketplace is solving, because you will have a lot of challenges getting both sides going. And that's the only motivation that kind of keeps you going to make sure that your marketplace will succeed.
Thank you.
So if I could add to that too, I think marketplaces are really tough, but I think the main way that I found that they're really tough is that they take a really long time. So like it's hard to build continual supply and demand over time. But if you keep at it and you go for like years, like you can have like a really solid business. Like we've seen, and like a lot of marketplaces have seen that, like once you sort of get that scale, it's like really hard to go down. I think marketplaces are some of the most resilient businesses out there, which is amazing. If it is an actual like real marketplace, so it is really, really, really tough to get it going because it takes forever. And as when I was like. Yeah. So when you get partners on board, like when I was talking to investors and stuff, it was like, it's important to get an investor or like a partner that understands that it is hard and it does take a long time. But once you get it going, it's like, it's really something special.
What are your top 3 growth hacking methods that not everyone is doing? So I'd love to hear from 3 individuals on a growth hacking method. Yi-Hsian, let's start with you. And I'd also love to hear from Arun and Ipal.
Growth hacking for us is being able to offer a more diverse set of services than our competitors, because it sets us apart, and it's able to have us go into conversations where our competitors can't. So being able to offer our services as a corporate benefit, because it can be given to any employee regardless if they are a parent or not, is more appealing than if you are a Bright Horizon that's only offering childcare or elder care.
Mm-hmm. Arun?
Yeah, interesting question. I think I think growth hacking is like maybe something where like you can get asymmetric value out of something that like not everybody else is. I'm not sure, like, I don't know if we've done anything that was like a growth hack necessarily. I mean, like branding stuff has like paid like really real dividends.
I think the audience, the upvoters, are kind of looking for things that they might not be thinking of, conventional marketing
Tactics that people don't usually think of. Maybe Reddit. Do people think about Reddit usually?
It's great.
Reddit is a good one. You know, like you have a captive audience that is like very interest focused, right? So like /r/anything that is relevant to your business, but you have to be like really authentic, otherwise they'll tear you apart. So it's tough. But
You'll get banned pretty fast.
I've been banned from several forums.
We've been banned.
But yeah, I think Reddit is probably a good one. Like communities, online communities are a good one. So which is hard, but you know, once you can penetrate an online community, you can really grow really quickly.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah. I don't know if people are thinking about this or not, but two things that worked really well for us, and we still utilize one of them, is one, hiring people offshore to just do some very menial task. People in, Bangladesh, we have an army of people in Bangladesh, had an army of people at Bangladesh at some point that just emailed people and told them, hey, we exist and you can use the service and it's really nice. You pay $3 an hour. But it's one text really that needs to get out there. And if you iterate on that text, it works like a charm and you get incredible conversion for really no money spent. The second thing that I think works really well, if you can do it, is writing scripts that can, market your product on, the couple of channels that you determine that work really well for you. And I still have a laptop actually that runs on my desk at work that has a script. It's so hacky and horrible to look at for a developer, but it works like a charm. It pulls the products, it posts them, prioritizes them, and posts them on several forums and websites where we know buyers are looking at, and it's still ROI positive.
Great. The audience wants to know about your tech stacks, and I think we heard a bit about iPulse. Jaden, can we hear about what's running the platform right now?
Yes. So I'm lucky to have some amazing product and managers and engineers. So Ro and Pan.
These are full-time?
Full-time, yeah. So Ro and Pan built Uber Pool. So it's I probably couldn't ask for a better team. Mm-hmm. So we have a full-time web engineer from Google. We have a team that does our back end. Mm-hmm. Pan is our CTO. He oversees all of that. So we built the whole thing ourselves. And we use some help from like Stripe for payment processing.
Does everybody use Stripe?
Right.
Yes.
Arun?
We use PayPal.
Okay. Why do you choose that over Stripe?
Because we have to do claims arbitration, because sometimes people don't like what they got, and PayPal handles all claim arbitration, and I don't think there's another product out there that does that.
Okay. What about Apiari?
We use Stripe, and we also have Square for gift cards.
Is your stack internal? Is it built by full-time?
Yep. So our CTO, who Adam, does all the tech build, and we use. I'm trying to think. We also have a UX designer and also a front-end designer.
Are there any tools that are particularly useful for marketplaces, or is it just payment? Any fancy algorithm tools we need to know about? No, nothing fancy. Okay.
It depends on how you're building it, right? Like if you're building it off of like WordPress or something, then it's like easier. If you're building it custom, then like, I don't know, there's tons of open source software that you can steal. Yeah. Or borrow or license.
Well, I guess I think iPaul was saying that he has his own fancy scripts running. So there's that. The next question is...
It's not fancy at all. It's Excel VBA.
For the product marketplaces, how are they handling shipping costs? Who pays for a return? So good operations question here. Arun or iPaul, yeah. And any of you guys, yeah.
We charge buyers. The sellers get a free service at the moment. There's nothing that you need to pay. But the buyers do have to pay for delivery, depending on their cart value. So you can get free delivery over $1,000, but if you want something for less, there's a delivery charge attached to it.
And the return policies?
For us, the return policy is we treat it like a secondhand furniture sale that would happen outside of the service as well. So if you're receiving something, inspect it, make sure you're happy with it. If you don't like it, you can reject for any reason. There's a small fee on it, $40, for the convenience of bringing it to you. We're going to have to bring it back, take care of it. If there was a fault on our end, we always make sure to make the customer happy as well. We don't nickel and dime people, and that's why we do well by customers. We also offer local pickup from our storage facility in North Bergen. If you go there, the restocking fee is $20 if you feel like it's not the thing that you really wanted to buy.
Arun, what about you?
Yeah, so shipping is a huge pain. People don't want to get out of their house to the post office and mail things, so it's really hard to get them to do it. We are pure seller to buyer, like eBay, so the seller will just mail the thing directly to the buyer. And then shipping is also interesting in the purchase price, so I'm sure all of you like buy things online, and you're like, oh, this is $100, and you get to the checkout, and you're like, $30 shipping, screw this. But if it was like $130 with $0 shipping, you'd be like, this is the greatest deal ever. And I think Etsy famously tried to push all their sellers into free shipping, and they had like this like backlash because like messaging is really, really hard. And now they're like trying it again. And I think it's working really well this time, but buyers just want free shipping. You know, it's like just bake the shipping price in. It's like, that's what everybody wants. And we actually don't take returns, which I think is awesome, but unclear how it will scale.
Unclear how that will scale?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, can you be a multi-billion-dollar business and not take returns? I don't know, maybe not. We push people to relist, right? So if you get something and it's like doesn't fit or it's not what you wanted, just like we have like a one-click like repost, and then everybody who was following the original item like gets notified, like, hey, it's back, don't miss out again. So usually stuff will sell. Sometimes it sells for more than it did the first time. So that works pretty well. But like again, like I don't know, like because like as you get more and more customers that are less passionate and more mainstream, maybe we won't be able to get them to purchase unless we offer returns. I don't know, but it's working well so far.
Jaden.
Yeah, so because we're in the sort of high-end space, people expect free shipping. So we cover the cost of shipping. And also it helped us engender some trust with our customer base. So if they come and they see that we're handling it, and they meet some designer from Australia, they don't know who it is, but they know that Pietra kind of has their back. That has helped. And then almost the opposite of you in returns. It was something that a lot of designers don't accept. And by adding that to the services we provide, we were able to kind of get customers to trust us sometimes. And we'll see how that scales.
Custom product though?
So engravings and stuff you can't return, but anything that's made to order you can return, which is the big difference. So anything that used to be made to order, which is like 4 weeks, used to be no returns, and we added a return layer.
And have you seen a lot of returns or what?
Way less than a lot of e-commerce companies we would match to. So like look at Revolve, right? If you look at their offering, it's like 800 million in sales and 400 million in returns. So.
The next question is about something you just brought up, which is trust. And I think this actually applies to each of you in very different ways. How do you manage trust between the parties involved? And I think this is, a question about authentication. It's a question in some cases about curation, and it's even a question of, being able to. I think actually Kenji, kind of an unusual case for this, but there has to be trust that people are, meeting the right people and meeting people they.
The basic is like we have to have a robust system to monitor the users coming in, especially scammers that scam money out of female users. So that happens a lot. But in addition to that, I think we need to pay more attention to the marketing, because marketing determines what kind of users are coming into the platform. And we do targeting very carefully. So it's hard for us to use platform that doesn't allow very targeted approach to marketing, and it makes a huge difference. Yep.
Yeah, Yi-Hsian.
We have trust on the same aspect as well. One area is providers come to us because we actually decrease all the scams. You guys, I'm sure, working on Craigslist too, right? It's like, I have to have cleaning done today, but I'm going to pay you in advance in cash. Can I pay you first through a check? I'm going to mail you. We don't take any of that. We have a strict credit card policy, so we just say, I'm sorry, we take a credit card, and that usually reduces a lot of scam. Providers love the fact that they don't get any of those scam calls anymore, so we weed them out for them. So that's why, they like to be on our platform. But from the client side, we actually vet all of our providers, so everyone is background checked, sex offenders list checked against, as well as 3 to 5 professional references that we have spoke to before they're able able to join the platform. So we're a gated platform, and that has really given the clients a lot of trust. Initially, it's really interesting. When they first come on, they still want to talk to the provider, want to get a sense of who they are. And then by their second and third provider, they're like, just send your set provider. She looks great. Do you want to talk to her? Nope, don't need to talk to her. So what we're really starting to see is that as a branded platform, we're able to shift the trust away from having to build from the individual provider, but that the customers are putting their trust in Apiari.
Hi, Paul. Devil's advocate question here. You probably don't have many buyers returning very frequently. And so what is the incentive to, I know you're trying to deliver a good product, but what is the incentive to fostering that relationship over, all the myriad things that you have to invest in as a growing company?
So it's a few things. In terms of trust, the buy side is the biggest trust-seeking side of the market for us, or has problems with other places, because if you look at a peer-to-peer furniture marketplace, there are very clear conflicts of interest between the buyers and the sellers. The sellers want to get something out quickly for as much money as they can, and they don't have the biggest incentive to be honest about the condition of the piece, and the buyers are trying to find real value out there, basically. And what we provided that really worked for us since the early days is really good quality photography that really, depicting the current condition of this thing, so that when you receive it, you're not surprised by, this side of the thing looks great, but you've got, 5 holes on the other side of this sofa. So removing that surprise element was really helpful for us. And the second thing is, things will still go wrong. There will be cases where you might overlook something, or for no fault of the customer, yours, a transaction might turn bad. Providing really great customer service is really important as well. So if you can, what we like to think about is, any scenario where there's a crisis, it's really an opportunity to, recruit an evangelist. And if you approach those problems like that, and if you're, very strict on your KPIs and numbers, generally it doesn't actually cost that much money. But if you can spin that experience to something really positive, you can actually really get somebody who's going to be marketing for you. And that's what we've really spent a lot of time doing as well, and helped us, build a lot of trust. It makes people go out and talk about, hey, these guys vetted the thing, and, I got what I wanted, and one thing I didn't like, and they, fixed it for me. They gave me a coupon, so I went back and bought something else. It goes a long way if you do good by your customers.
Another stack question. Marketing stack. What are your tools? Anyone can jump in.
I use Hootsuite to do all of my social posts, WordPress for our blog, and Canva is a great one just to design any type of graphical elements for anything that you need.
Kenji?
We use the same Hootsuite, Canva, and we use a lot of analytics tool, Amplitude. We use Apps Flyer. That's both for marketing and retention analysis. Yep.
Great.
We're using some basic tools, MailChimp, probably moving over to something called Klaviyo, Google Analytics. I live in there every day. I'm basically just looking at what's going on. And then we get reports we have someone who's helping us with digital marketing. So we have a dashboard that they provide to us. And
Do you use a CRM or customer success?
so we are implementing a CRM now.
Arun?
We use Braze for like retention marketing, like push notifications and stuff like that. I think we use SendGrid, or I think we also use I don't know. There's another email provider as well. There's like a bunch of SEO tools that we use. I think I'm not sure actually which ones they are. I'm not the best person to ask what our marketing stack is actually. So
Can I just ask, did you use any key tools at the beginning?
in the beginning? Not really. I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not really. Our blog or like our content marketing was like custom on our own website. So no, like Google Analytics obviously, but like like metrics tools are a little bit different, I guess, than marketing stack.
Hi, Paul?
Yeah, we use a lot of the same tools. We use Hootsuite, some WordPress for blog posts. We use Klaviyo. We use Justuno for capturing people's emails. We use analytics, but we also have some custom-built dashboards on Redash. as well that we aggregate on.
Great. Well, thank you to our speakers, and let's give them a round of applause. Really appreciate it.